story into someone's hand. But I also remember saying, like, pressing that story to someone's hand and being like, thank you for reading this. I really appreciate it. It's terrible. It's a first draft. It needs a ton of work. I didn't even try that hard on it. It's no big deal, but please do read it as soon as possible and tell me everything that you thought about it. I think that's because writers, there's two weird things going on when we're trying to write a story for an audience. The first thing is that we are genuinely, I think, trying to make a gift for someone. We're trying to do this kind of empathic thing, to imagine what someone would like to read and then give that to them, and give them as rich a reading experience as possible, and we want to do that because we care about them, and because we have found in our own lives that reading experiences can be transformative, can be these wonderfully positive moments in our lives, I think. At the same time that we're trying to make this gift, writing has to be a gift. If it's not a gift, it never works. And I really believe that, and I think that's true for, why did J.D. Salinger, I think that's true for all kind of echelons of writing. Why did J.D. Salinger work so hard to integrate that red hunting cap into The Catcher in the Rye, to break all of our hearts with the recognition that it was the same color as his dead brother's hair? He did that for us to enrich our experience with that text, to bring the pain and brokenness of Holden closer to the pain and brokenness that's inside each of us. I really believe that is a gift, that whole novel is a gift. I also think that Twilight, which is respectfully to you fans a lesser novel than The Catcher in the Rye, was also written as a gift. And I don't think, by the way, that authorial intention matters. I don't think Stephenie Meyer wrote Twilight to be a gift to the millions of people who have experienced it as a gift. I think that she wrote it because she had a dream about vampires, and she had a complicated relationship with the men that she looked up to in her life, and that resulted in this novel that turned out to feel like a gift to millions of people. Whether or not you act on it as a gift doesn't affect whether it is a gift. Okay. Also true of Harry Potter. You know, I mean, Harry Potter is this remarkably well-imagined universe that we are welcomed into, I would argue, very effectively, and that is, for millions of us, a gift. Not only a gift of distraction, although that is a gift, but also a gift of kind of enriching and widening the way we are able to imagine the world. At the same time that it is a gift and it is an act of empathy, writing for an audience is incredibly self-indulgent, like outlandishly egotistical and self-involved. Like, what you are saying is you are writing a story for an audience, is you are not only saying, my story is worth someone else's time, you are also saying, my story is more worth someone else's time than what they would otherwise be doing. It's called opportunity cost in economics, right? So you're basically saying, instead of reading Hamlet, check out this story I wrote, right? That's a bold statement, man. Like, what kind of crazy person thinks that this would be a better way to spend? There are already a ton of good books for people to read. Like, a ton. Like, if you've ever been in a bookstore, and if you haven't so quickly while they still exist, you've seen that those bookstores have a lot of books in them. A lot. And it takes a kind of bold egotism to walk into that bookstore and say, I think there's room for one more, you know? And the idea that someone else, so you are asking someone to do something pretty extraordinary when you're asking them to read, because you're asking them to take you seriously and to give you their time. And I would argue that you owe them, as a reader, you owe that reader the responsibility of giving your all for writing a story for them. Not for you, but writing a story for them. And that means that you have to be able to imagine what it's like to be them, which, if you've ever seen, how many of you have ever met me before? A couple? So you know that I'm obsessed with this idea of imagining people complexly, and I won't ever shut up about it, and I'm sorry to all of you who've heard me say this before. It's really easy for me to imagine myself complexly because I'm inside of my own head and I'm this fascinating character. It's beautiful and ugly, it's
wrote in Song of Myself, I contain multitudes, right? When you think about yourself, you're thinking about this really complex individual. And when you think about other people, you think about them very one-dimensionally. Like, that guy sucks. Or that girl is hot. Or, this person is my enemy. And that's it. Like, you're able to think about yourself much more complexly, particularly in high school, but also as you get older. Adults like to think that this problem goes away. It doesn't go away. It just gets kind of sublimated. So you're always able to think of yourself more complexly than you're able to think of other people. The challenge of being a writer is that you have to imagine not only what it's like to be the characters in your story, but what it's like to be the dude who you are, or dudette, who you are asking to spend however many minutes or hours reading this story that they could otherwise be spending doing something that would be quote-unquote fun. So I think that tension between this act of egotism of walking into a bookstore and saying, I belong here too, and the tension of wanting to make a gift is reflected kind of in the life of the writer in that way that I talked about earlier, where sometimes we think that we're geniuses and sometimes we think that we're terrible, which is why we press stories into people's hands, but then say, oh, but it's not that good, it's just the first draft, okay, cool. Okay, one more thing. I think that stories are better when the people in those stories want something or someone or anything. Kurt Vonnegut tells a story about how his favorite short story of the entire Iowa Writers' Workshop one year was about this nun who had a piece of chicken stuck in her teeth and was just desperately trying to find an instrument in the nunnery with which she could remove this piece of chicken. And that was the whole story. And then she did, in some clever way. They didn't have any toothpicks. I don't know. I've never been in a, I actually have, now that I think about it, because my great aunt was a nun. But anyway, I don't know why there weren't any toothpicks in the nunnery. Story, I only read Kurt Vonnegut's story about the story. So, try to think about other people as people instead of as one-dimensional objects and foils for you. That's good advice, by the way, not only with writing, but also with trying to get girlfriends and stuff. Honestly, if you want boys or girls to like you, the number one thing is to be able to imagine them complexly. If you can imagine their desires and what keeps them up at night and all that, you can totally get them. It becomes almost unfairly easy. But there's generally only 2 guys or 2 girls at every high school where you're able to do that, and I don't know why. I wasn't, unfortunately, even close. Okay, we're going to do a writing exercise. So you have to have pen and paper. Or